Hello everyone, the EVE Vanguard Operation Avalon 2-week open playtest has now drawn to a close, so we thought it would be good to go through our thoughts on it. We recorded this before FC released the player stats on the event and the creation of the first Avalon Refuge, so there'll be a part 2 covering those aspects the following week. I'm joined here today by Peekaboo, Possum and Dan Steelmerc, seasoned Vanguard players, and who I mainly squadded for this test. So, what were your feelings on Operation Avalon?
Right, so I've played through the Avalon playtest on the second week of the test and on the last weekend that we had. So Avalon played like a full game for me for the first time, and I understood what was the purpose of me on the ground, what I was supposed to do. I didn't have that many questions this time around. Things like the market, for instance, were great additions. Manufacturing started making some sense. Um, from my personal view, I think I understand what EVE Vanguard is supposed to be, but I feel like personally, I've been waiting 10 years for a successor to Dust, obviously. I feel like having this idea now is a bit late, as in, by the time this game matures enough to be played by a whole bunch of people, the extraction should have fad might just go out of fashion, which was one of the fears I had. The Steam playtest numbers, that was only the players that signed up for the Steam playtest were pretty poor. Although devs have revealed in some other communications that was the most playtest out of all those that we had, even compared to First Strike back like 3 years ago, so that's good. But the raw player numbers weren't that exactly great, and on the second week I played, and especially on the last weekend, I could barely meet anybody new. There's been quite a few guys I've shot down, obviously met, but it wasn't like ridiculous. Like I could still pinpoint who was playing sometimes, and I could see the names repeating after a while. There are some server issues as well, but obviously technical problems are expected here. But if I had to summarize it, I understand what this game is supposed to be in this stage, and what it will be eventually. It's just that I don't think that it's enough. Um, not just as from an opinion of a dust vet, but as somebody that plays other games. You know, why would you play EVE Vanguard where you can just buy Arc Raiders right now and get yourself hooked on a really good game that's really well built, and all those mechanics that are still kind of getting their final polishes here and there every test here are done, right? I've played some Marathon as well. That also felt like a complete experience, and you don't have to wait. You don't have to, make lengthy feedback posts and those constant arguments that we had. Uh, but the basics of the game aren't really present in those other communities. Of course, they exist, but it felt like going to the Vanguard Discord during the test. I've seen a lot of discussions about the core mechanics of the game, and there's been a lot of discussions that some were really excited, some were very critical. So yeah, from the communication that was sent out by CC Penrith, Deep Playtest was really well received, but I feel like that was kind of bending the reality a little bit, because I've seen a lot of criticism, and that criticism was fair, I would say, and so for me, I would say that the game is in a state where it's the best it's ever been, but that experience is not something that most of us wanted. Of course, there's a lot of enjoyment to be had, especially Tower. I mean, I loved going on Tower, but I'm not sure if this product will make sense like 2 years from now when the game will be finally ready. Because I feel like now they figure out what the game is supposed to be and they're building it out. Like in 2 years, when Arc Raiders will have so much more content, Marathon will, I mean, that's probably gonna die, unfortunately, but then you have games like War Dogs, for instance, which some of you here have been very happy about. So it will be interesting to see how this game will roll out and if it will find its own niche, because I feel like it's struggling to find that right now. Because I feel like every single test kind of bounces around different ideas, and whatever is popular goes in the test. And yeah, we'll see if this experience that shapes itself now will build out into something that finds its own niche instead of just being some generic sci-fi shooter.
Well, I'd say like I kind of echo that sentiment in terms of it's to me it's like the most kind of like complete gameplay loop they've done. The most like the game that knows itself what it is. I think the challenge we're facing at this point is that enough in terms of like you could be a you know a good game where you can have good gameplay loop, but are you going to be enough in kind of a crowded market? Like you say, there's a lot of kind of like polished examples out there. Arc Raiders obviously is kind of like what they're kind of being inspired by for this kind of latest iteration of Vanguard, and it's like does it have the kind of is the Eve universe enough to kind of like justify its existence? That's I think the kind of big challenge they're facing with this latest build. Obviously we're just kind of like fresh off the playtest. We've had a kind of few updates that have happened, or kind of actual patches when the playtest was live. I think there's a difference when you've got a full 2 weeks to deliver it versus the kind of like closed playtesting where it's just basically over a weekend. How did you find like what were you kind of like your biggest I'm gonna say surprises of the playtest, or what kind of like that you're happy they're kind of experimenting with some of the changes they made?
I like the little detail, for example, that when you expected there was a lost NPC spawn. So it was wrongly timed, maybe, but just the detail that you couldn't like relax once you hit the extraction beacon, because there could be either players or NPCs, and like little additions to the gameplay, not perfected or not even polished, but this little addition to the gameplay really stood out in my opinion.
Just on that note, actually, I was surprised that they're actually actively experimenting with like the extraction timers and stuff during the test, and I did like the change that the extraction, beam itself took longer to get, to reach the surface, I guess. Didn't really like so much that the terminal took ages to use. I feel like that was a bit of an overcorrection, but that's what these things are for, really, for the experimentation. So yeah, I was glad to see them like actively working on, off feedback that they were getting. I'm assuming that was because of the feedback they were getting. That because it was too easy before. Like if someone activated a beacon and you were like far away, it's like, well, they're gone. You're not going to catch up to them, and even if you down them, they'll get kidnapped by the beam anyway.
Yeah.
I think that's the devs were very much kind of like to the wire in terms of getting this build out. As like kind of like previous tests would have like kind of a closed build a few days before, kind of help them kind of quash any last minute bugs, but we didn't get that here. I think they really were kind of like pushed to the wire. So yeah, they didn't get to test many like what things in a live gameplay environment. So like I said, I do like the changes they made, and certainly in terms of the activation time, the delay it takes to activate, but that kind of activation time with the panel, that was kind of a nightmare in terms of first off that it's not interesting gameplay to be kind of like stood there holding a button for a while, but also when they did the 7.3 patch where you were kind of also stuck in place and you could not move at all. I thought that was kind of a bit of disappointing change, really.
It is good that they're experimenting with that sort of change, though. That's the kind of stuff I'd expect from an alpha, and to be honest, I'm expecting more of that stuff as they go into early access as well.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'd really like to see in terms of obviously Avalon's done, but we've got about 4 months before it does go into early access. So just some kind of like playtest balance changes I'd like to see. Just kind of they obviously have their kind of Monday dev tests, but as we've shown with this playtest, you put it in the players' hands and we're going to abuse anything we possibly can. I mean, kind of going on to the melee situation as well, I thought I was a bit disappointed they didn't kind of downgrade that in somehow. I mean, they did decrease the damage, but the fact that we were still kind of like spamming on anything and everything was not particularly engaging for me.
When you say 4 months, it's just you don't realize just how close it actually is. It's like that's going to be quite tight for the devs as well to make any significant changes.
Well, yeah, and we're based in the UK, or the devs are based in the UK, so they've got European holidays to deal with, and certainly like a few weeks of August, and like you wonder how much like kind of delays that's going to have to the process, and yeah, what they can kind of like what additional content they can actually put in for the early access release.
I suppose it's kind of a good thing that they're doing the early access around the GTA 6, because then a lot of people are going to be distracted while they've got this live game running. So okay, we can.
Well, see, that's
take it easy.
They pitched the PC exclusive at the moment well then, because like I think GTA is only on console to begin with.
Sorry, I've already booked my holidays in Leonida this year, so Yeah, it's going to be a very tight November, but I think that the best change that we have seen with this build, because again, as VIPs we play builds earlier than others, and we get to play the game and it's very infant stages sometimes. With this one, I think the biggest surprise that we had compared to the last VIP test was that the NPCs have been slightly overhauled. I feel like when I was playing the last build, the NPCs would kind of be there in the way. This time around, while they're still far away from being actual enemies that you are scared sometimes to engage with, this time around it felt like enemies made sense more often than they didn't. And when we're grinding for the Squire course, I do have to say that spending some time at I think it was the compound, right? Where you had to grind through just hordes of NPCs. Well, they were a bit clunky.
The command block, is it?
The command block, yeah. Yeah, the big one. Yeah, when we were sitting there with Peekaboo, those NPCs, well, they were still clunky at times, and I've said in my feedback, like, they had their own spot that they had to go to before they would start shooting you. With that minor exception, like, when they're starting to shoot you, like, you could be in some trouble sometimes, and it felt genuinely fun to engage those NPCs. Again, as outlined in my feedback post, they were really bullet spongy, and yeah, you had to use up a magazine just to take down one, but yeah, that was a very memorable part to me, and that was, I think, the biggest surprise for me from the last test, is that the NPCs now aren't just standing in the way, they sometimes can do you harm, and obviously I'm not sure if it was a bug, but sometimes NPCs would chase you around the map, and now that they're way more aggressive, that felt fun. Like sometimes you'd see that guy just like shooting behind you, like, oh, it's an NPC that chased you down half the map just because you went the wrong way once for like 2 seconds.
I think I do like that about them though. It's actually too easy in a lot of games, especially single player games, where you could just like run past everything. So it's good that they will just chase you down.
And also you can use them for your advantage, because at the command block there's heavies spawning. If you go around the command block, then if somebody starts engaging those heavies up front, then somebody's coming. So that also offers some chance at least for you to prepare for PvP, which I admit I suck at, but having that warning sign was kind of cool as well.
Well, I think talking about PvP, I think this was a much more kind of PvP focused test than certainly kind of Nemesis was. I mean, it seemed to be much more kind of like shoot on sight side of things. Do you think there was it's more to do to like the lack of kind of new player experience, or certainly the most people's introduction to Nemesis was a situation where there was no PvP enabled. Do you think that kind of contribute to the culture of well, in this one that didn't have that, so shoot first?
I think it was great. The whole shoot first and then ask questions later approach was so fresh for this playtest, and I really, really liked it a lot because it put you constantly into action. Once you saw that somebody was on the map or started shooting, it was on, and it was like, yeah, I think it was Sam who said before the playtest that CCP or FC, sorry, has this wrong image that people don't want to PvP. And I was like opposed to that statement because I thought like, nah, that cannot be. This is a PvP game, or PvP is included in this game. So after this playtest, I say, yes, he was totally right. The moment we opened the server to a more realistic approach to, or a more modern gaming audience, or more younger players, this turns into a bloodfest or like a slaughter. And I loved every minute of it. Because yeah, I suck at PvP too, but just the action and the engagement was so thrilling, and there was some some real thrill and excitement in just shooting. And that was something that was since a long time I haven't felt with Vanguard anymore. It's like there's something happening. I'm being part of action, and no matter if I die or not, but just this constant action and this, you have to be aware of your environment. That was very, very good in this playtest. At least this aspect.
I think the challenge is that it's difficult to kind of like determine any one variable that kind of causes it, because this test is so different from Nemesis. You can't really pinpoint and say this is the cause, this is why PvP happened a lot more often. Like as well, like with the kind of looting situation, or the kind of like in this build, you did not get those kind of like loot boxes refreshing, per like phase change, as it were. Yeah, I don't think it's even had kind of phase changes. So like the only loot on the field was either in boxes or in players' hands. So if you do spawn in a bit late and you want to get some stuff, the other players are basically in your way getting it. So that could have kind of contributed as well.
Yeah. But for me, mostly it was the influx of new people. New people
Right.
that just wanted to brawl. Everything didn't care about the lore of EVE or something. Just wanted to experience the game and just started to shooting and ask questions later.
I think
Yeah.
that is probably, sorry, Possum. I think that is a big part of it, because by CCP's own admission, oh God, I even said CCP, but by FC's own admission, they were at CCP at the time, they didn't get very good retention after the tutorial of Nemesis from non-EVE players. So really, the only people left were the people like grinding the event, and I think that's what contributed to, the more PvP this time around. Also, as well, you had one small map. You weren't spread across 4 different maps. There's 4 different servers essentially, so it was a lot easier to find people.
Okay, I think what I want to say about PvP is that way back in the day, FC has said that the goal of seeing a player on the map was to have a boss fight of some sorts, where NPCs are kind of your main enemies, but then if you see a player, then that's an engagement that, that's the hard one. And I think this playtest really showcased that really well, because as you guys said, loot is no longer respawning all the time. So, at some point, like 20 minutes into a match, you need to get somebody's stuff to go by, or even find something valuable. You have to go through somebody's stash that they drop. So what this created is the sense that especially at the last 15 minutes of a match, that those PvP engagements are really like boss fights for me, and that's what made them fun. I feel like PvP finally has found its place in the game as well. Because when loot was respawning, for instance, there wasn't that much purpose to engage others, because, you just wait 2 minutes and loot respawns, you grab your stuff and you're out. Now, if you just join into a late session, like, if you want some loot, you have to do PvP. But also, if you are a loot piñata, and I was once a loot piñata, I was had some really expensive gear on me, that tension of running to an extraction zone and just, activating that terminal, it felt really good, because then I was afraid of players as if they are really hard boss that I don't want to deal with. And again, a really difficult NPC is difficult, obviously, but even a bad Vanguard player could mess you up, especially with the melee that was dealing just enormous amounts of damage. Like, even a bad Vanguard player could take you down if you weren't careful. So I think that tension was there with this time around. I think there's a kind of VP I would like to see in the game in the future. It's like where it has a purpose. It's no longer, I just want to shoot people. It's like now there's a loot advantage to it. But when you agree not to shoot each other, right, then there's some great benefits that you get, because, you can, for example, do a command block together or do the tower together. And then, whoever grabs the loot first, well, has the loot, but then do you take that person down because they just stole, say, 6,000 credits worth of stuff from the tower? Do you take them down just before they extract, for instance? Well, now it's up to you. And I feel like the idea that they had for PvP in the past is now finalized with this build.
We have C saying that they want players. It doesn't have to be all kind of shoot and sight, or they're not giving players the kind of the ability to collaborate, or they're not getting tools in game. Yes, we do have like prox chat, but if you've got an EU server, what are the odds that people speak English or kind of friendly? If you don't want to have that situation where you kind of have to go on voice in order not just to shoot on sight, there's no kind of text chat or no kind of universal in-game language we could use to kind of communicate friendly or anything like that. So I think that is the challenge. Shoot on sight is the logical choice at this point in the game.
Yeah, I do really hope they add text chat. It'd be a very big mistake, I think, if they didn't do that.
I think the worst thing that could happen is having "don't shoot" emote or something for Vanguard. It would be wrong universe, dude. You know what I mean? It's there should be always the possibility that a player will betray you, because I think the extraction shooter thing lives from this constant. I cannot be sure what your goals are or what your ultimate goals are. So it would be kind of a loss if we lose this, this factor of suspense and uncertainty. But at the same time, like we did with the multi-squad event, it's like, dude, just give us the option to have something to squad up, have temporary alliances in deployment. Yes, I agree, but without having like the ability to ally with the whole map. You know what I mean? But have the ability to temporarily align with certain other squads. That would be a win or enrichment for the gameplay in Vanguard. But
Yeah, I
having
mean-
like emotes or something like "don't shoot" or "let's extract together," it's like, dude, no.
Well, I
That's
think
the
like
wrong
kind of temporary solutions, as it were. Just like I say, with that kind of lack of there's no kind of corporations in the game, no kind of like ability to kind of squad up on the fly. You know, just having something that could kind of quickly communicate as a stopgap might be worthwhile. But yeah, like at this point, there's no reason to kind of like gang up. You're not doing faction missions, expeditions together. So it's like, well, I'm gonna shoot you and take your stuff.
At the same time, because of the initial difficulty of the playtest, people were much more willing to squad up, where they didn't even consider squadding up in earlier playtests or other playtests. So I really like this fact that people just could squad up, or were much more encouraged to find a squad and say, let's do this together. So there was some dynamic,
Yeah,
really
take
good dynamic.
the
Because to be honest, we play like 3 years Vanguard, and I can only count like this was. I think this was the first playtest, Juno, and then that we played together in one squad. We know each other like 3 years, but this playtest did encourage us to squad up, where we had other people in an earlier playtest, so that we didn't consider squadding up. But this playtest managed that we squad up as a team. I managed to squad up with Possum and Hel Satano again, which was like, my god, emotions, dude. So this little aspect of the playtest I really love, because community-wise, I think this playtest wasn't a total failure, or was a failure per se. I think there was very, very good things in this playtest that would benefit our Vanguard from the community, or for the community. So this little aspect, because everyone was like, yeah, let's squad up, let's do this. And then we was like, or the event of Pyombo with the multi squad, this Dyke Summers or something event, was totally good. It was awesome. It was something like that made me emotional about Vanguard. I have my problems with the current vision of Vanguard, or where Vanguard is heading. But at the same time, I must say, like breaking out of this like 3-man squad approach was totally awesome. It was totally different game. And there's a vision hidden in the vision, or the official vision of Vanguard, that is, in my opinion, overlooked and would benefit the whole community and the game if you would just try to make it like possible to, you know what I mean? But just for the fact that people, or that I could squad up with a lot of players that I know for a lot of time, but never had the opportunity to squad up with, or squad up again after some playtests in the past. That felt really good, and it was great. And also the influx in new people. We got absolutely PvP monsters. We got powerhouses. We got people from all aspects of gaming. And I think that is such a strong benefit of our community. And that's something that I can, at least if I don't like Vanguard, I still love the community of Vanguard. You know what I mean? That's something I can always come back and say, at least this point is successful in my eyes.
Yeah, I feel like this playtest was much more like the difficulty of the POIs meant that like running solo was a lot kind of more of a challenge. Like it did encourage, like you say, that kind of squadding up, and I think players wanting to go beyond the 3-man squad as well, 3-person squad, and yeah, like say, Pyombo was arranging the operation to kind of like everyone to squad up and everyone to kind of like run the map as kind of a PvE side of things. And I was happy to see like kind of players experiment with that. I mean. Talking about that event itself, like how did you find the performance?
The performance was horrible. It's not gonna lie. It was, first of all, just the organization of the event was like hell, dude. It was like everyone was deploying with with their fancy stuff and everything, and just everyone had to just extract and everything. Like getting the right timer, so the initial or the target session where every squad had to deploy then, was like, oh my god. Once we had the system down, it was very cool, and it was like changing the game. It was a completely different game. And because of, you only could see like your squad, but not the other squad's name. It was like, there was good situations, because even if you got a 3-man squad and you see 8 people or 9 people running out, running towards you from one direction, you still have the advantage that you know the position of your squad mates, which isn't a given if you run with 9 people towards 3 people or any number of opponent players. You know what I mean? So there was always the difficulty or the possibility of friendly fire. And yeah, it was cool. But yeah, once we did the legendary jumping from the tower, the servers went down, or we just drop kicked the server into non-existence or something, and yeah, you know the rest. But yeah, everything else, once we broke out and managed to like find like 9 or 12 people on the map and just run as a whole army or platoon, like I call it, it was a magic, and it was an effing very fun game. I cannot describe it otherwise, but it was cool. It broke out from this 3-man approach, which has its merit and has its place in Vanguard. Don't get me wrong. 3-man squads are cool when the deployment doesn't allow any more squad members because of like drawing too much attraction or like the notoriety of the squad, whatever. But yeah, we shouldn't get rid of the 3-man squad, but also we should allow like 6-man, 9-man squads to exist, or have some PvE that scales with the amount of squads that you have, you know, because that is something that elevates the game and elevates the gameplay into something that is much more fun and breaks out of this like I don't know, stale or yeah, installment development at the moment with just extraction, 3-man, and nothing else. You know what I mean?
I think that's the challenge they're facing in terms of coming from EVE, or certainly like with players like EVE background, where there is a lot of scale, there's a lot of cooperation, a lot of cooperation. Like you're gonna want people to have these kind of bigger sessions, not kind of like stuck to the 3-person squads. And I think that is the problem where they're CTB or FC are very focused on this 3-person setup at the moment. I mean, they're talking about, you know, rather than having kind of a team-based mode, they were saying like a 3v3v3 kind of PvP setup. And I think it doesn't seem like we're going to get out of that 3-person squad anytime soon.
Like I said, it has to break out from the 3-person squad. Like 3 persons should be in a highly risk deployment, where 3-person is like too many, basically, because you will draw attraction if any one of your squad member does an error or something goes wrong. But it shouldn't be like the norm. But a 3-man approach would be like super awesome for something that has so much value for the deployment, something sabotage, so that could really trigger some major events in maybe in EVE or something. But yeah, that would be a nice approach for the 3-man squad, but not for like a I don't know, like a normal deployment without any signification also for the development of your character. It's just like a loot run should be doable solo if you go the route that you allow this. But yeah, the 3-man squad should be like, yeah, okay, any person more would draw too much attention. There would be like too much answer from your opponents or from your enemies, and yeah, anyone less and the deployment wouldn't succeed. So that should be like the aim. For high risk deployment that require 3 people, 3 organized and 3 players that know each other, their playstyle, and can work perfectly together as a squad. Then 3-man squad is the way to go, in my opinion, because it would be like immersion driven. It would be, I rely on my teammate. We have to make it like the deployment. We have to make it work. It's now or never, like this kind of approach. And then yeah, you can rely on your teammate, and yeah, your teammates can rely on you. That would be like an engaging, immersive gameplay.
I think the game sort of needs both, as in those squads that you guys mentioned, but I think that the game really needs a way for solo players to enjoy the game as well. While doing the game this time around in squads of 3 was pretty... I wouldn't say easy, but it wasn't that hard either. Doing anything solo was next to impossible.
Yeah.
Which meant that, you know, if your goal was to acquire the Squire Call, for instance, there's no way you'd be able to do it alone. I mean, maybe, but it would take you just so much time and frustration and like optimizing things and, you know, just staying behind cover like 80% of the time. I've tried doing.
I'd
solo
caveat that
area.
with in terms of like you have to squad up to learn how to do the POIs. You have to like run it with a squad in order to get the timings of things, and like it being PvE mainly, like you get the you find out the tactics, you find out the cheese in order to do it, and you know the set order. That's so I was able to get like do the Nemesis core. But again, like Nemesis core was only kind of like one item per entire map, so I did that kind of solo just because I didn't want to have to share kind of setup. But it's not a game you can just play solo. Like I said, it's that kind of like you need to learn how to play it. So even if it can be achievable like by the experts of the game, like it's not solo player friendly at all.
Yeah,
It,
with,
I mean, you could do it solo, but you had to organize yourself well, or like like you said, know how to cheese it, So yeah.
well, yeah, but not everybody jumps on comps with others, right? And sometimes when you join a random squad, just players are just totally going their own ways, right?
Yeah.
Which I think maybe not as a part of the game for November, but I think over time there should be maybe some lighter experiences for solo players just to get them started in the game. Because again, a squad of 3 doesn't really teach you about if you grab 3 new players that just start playing the game, they're not gonna figure out anything about the game themselves as well, right? The game doesn't explain itself, which is fine. It's EVE hasn't done that for like 2 decades and was fine. Now they started in the tutorial recently, so I think it's possible for a game like this to survive just by having some mechanics that you figure out on your own. But again, you shouldn't be required to squad up in order to play the game, because not everybody will, not everybody can. There's been, for instance, one player that was communicating with us using chat because he couldn't use his microphone, and it was just messy because you had to alt tab out of the game to Discord and stuff like that. It was impossible to coordinate. And even if they included like some in-game chat, that would suck as well. So I think having some maybe smaller maps, some lighter NPCs, just so if you wanna play solo, you can. And then eventually you're gonna realize that hey, it's easier with a squad of 3, but you don't have to. Like you should be able to have your own niche, because I think this time around I've seen quite a few players that played solo, and yeah, it was just easy to get them down, right? And I mean, obviously, yes, we have discussed PvP as kill on sight in this build, so that was the natural instinct. But so you sort of think like that player didn't have a good experience just because they couldn't find 2 people to play with them. But then again, the opposite should be also true, where you have like 6 or 9 people in a squad as well. Because the way that we have done that during that test that we've been doing, that event that we had, it was messy because you see players on the map that aren't in your squad, and you're not sure if that's the enemy or your friend from a second squad that was playing alongside you. So it was just messy. I think that should be solved as well. So I think it should be everything at once for it to be a complete experience, so that solo players can find their own niche and fun. But also larger squads shouldn't be discouraged, right? Because I feel like there's a hard limit here, like 3 people, that's it. And all the POIs, everything's made for squads of 3, and as we have proven with our event, if you run 6 or 9 people, you can do it, and yeah, it gets messy a bit sometimes, but that's just because of the game mechanics. The game can support large amounts of people, and if there's a bigger map, then that could be designed with larger play counts in mind. And if you include some dynamic NPC changes, say if there's a larger squad coming up, then more NPCs spawn, or maybe they are just tougher. I think that would be a very fun experience for everybody involved.
I think a way they can solve the squad, the squad thing is so they keep the dynamic of 3 players, but then you have like platoons, so you can like invite other squads with you, so you can have like up to 4 or maybe 3 or something. Maybe 3 would be better probably. So you got like 3. You can have up to 3 squads in a single like mega squad or a platoon or whatever you want to call it. I think that's a good way of doing it.
Yeah, and I'd like to see them experiment basically with how they run these tests, because like they do have a lot. We've got 4 months until it goes early access. I would like to see them kind of mix it up in terms of like different variables, like you say, with offering kind of effectively larger squads or teams, as it were. Yeah, so I'm keen to see CCP experiment.
As for the solo thing, I don't think there should be solo queues or anything like that. I think what they proposed before, and I think this is like an off comment by by someone in VIP chat. So whether or not this will become a thing is, suit fitting will allow you to make more of like a solo friendly sort of play style. And I think that's probably the better way of going about it. So you can have something that's more stealthy, whether that's by cloaks or, hiding yourself on like pings or whatever, if they do add something like that. I think that's probably the best way to approach it rather than like solo queues, because I think that just dilutes the game pool too much.
Yeah, you can solve it in many different ways. I just think that it should be approached as a potential thing to solve and investigate if it's something that, could be solved over time. Suit things will change the game in such dramatic ways that, I'll just wait for it to happen, I think. Because we're not sure what's going to happen with suit things, how they're going to work and how they're going to play out, because they haven't been telling us much about it. So
Yeah, but whatever it looks like, I guarantee you it's not going to look like Dusts. Like a lot of the things they've made for this game, and I think that's something people need to be prepared for. Is I think the way they're going about it, and sorry if this is a bit off topic, we've meant to be talking about Avalon, but you'll probably end up like grading, like your modules will be like suit parts instead, so like shoulders and stuff like that, shoulders, arm pads and stuff like that. I think that's what it's probably going to look like, but it'll work similar to how modules work. They'll just be like physical items on your suit. Judging from like the promo stuff that they've released recently, I think that's how it's going to work.
I think that because you mentioned Dust as the inspiration, how the game's for some is supposed to be made. People expect Dust 2.0, and I don't think that's ever gonna go out especially from certain chats on certain discords. Like, yeah, that Dust stays alive in people's hearts. But I think that if they find out something cool, then we should give them a chance. Because one of the things I noticed is that while there's quite a lot of Dust players in the community still, those that wanted Dust 2.0 have largely left. There's quite a big population of Dust vets that appreciate Vanguard, so I think we can be quite excited for what's to come, because again, if it's terrible, we'll make 50 feedback posts about why. But I think they are starting to understand why some decisions were made in Dust, how things worked in Dust, and then they take their own spin at it, which I think is quite good. Because again, playing Dust 2.0, that would have been the easy way, right? They want something bigger than Dust, so I just hope that whatever it comes with suitings again has some Dust inspiration to it. But yeah, feeling like having like what it was like 3,000 or 4,000 maybe 4,000, but like 400 modules in Dust easily, right? So you had the myofibs, shield recharges, and then you had vehicle fittings as well, those different gun variations, stuff like that. I think that was just a little too much. So if they can simplify it and offer the same possibilities, I think that's just great.
I think it's
Yeah,
the
and
diversity of role, right? In terms of like Dust had a lot. You had a team based, and you had like chronologies, and you had like there was kind of a wide variety. Whereas this being kind of like a 3-person squad, you're never gonna have that same level of like kind of committed, different roles as it were.
Yeah, I just want to clarify as well that, I said, oh, it's not going to be like Dust. That's not a criticism, and I'm glad that they're going to experiment with it. It's just hopefully it offers the same sort of like heavy customization that people sort of want from the system, even if it doesn't look like, you've got a specific suit that has like bonuses and stuff like that.
Well, I would like to see them lean more into the drop suit fitting side of things, like so that I'm, modifying certain characteristics, like for example, being able to reveal loot a lot quicker, or changing speed and stuff like that. I found with the chipset system and the guns, I didn't really interact with that very much. It's kind of twofold in terms of like I want my gun to feel the same every time I use it, and there was no kind of firing range in order to actually see what effects these kind of changes will make on my gun.
Yeah, the chipsets, I don't know, especially since a lot of them seem to be quite rare, like you can't reacquire them easily, so I don't know, I didn't really bother with them much either. I had an Apex gun that I used, but I didn't really use it much. I just ended up using the default just because it was more consistent. Just that and energy rounds is all I need. Is like bothering with all this customization and then losing it is, I don't know. If it was easy to like rebuy it all, then that'd be better, I think. But I guess that goes against a lot of the extraction conventions as well.
Well, for me, it's the challenge of that it's friction to get back into the game, especially if you're playing with a squad. You know, you lose your fancy Apex with chipset guns, and then you've got to like kind of remake that. You know, what people are kind of readying up, and you're kind of like having to do all these things to get, you know, to remake what you just had. It's the lack of loadout system means that it's kind of like I say, it can be frustrating to get back into match when, you know, when I'm online. I just want to be able playing. I don't want to be kind of like yeah, like I say, remaking the same thing every time.
Yeah, that's definitely something they need to do is loadouts. So you can, like, you might still need to get the things that, you know, you might need to buy the chipsets or like run this activity to get it, but you want a way to restock that loadout instantly rather than having to dig through inventory. It's like, oh, what chipset is this? Where's the skull crack? You know, amongst all these icons that look the same. It's like you want, or you don't want to be guessing. Oh, did I have a brace on that? Did I have a kinetic hammer? It's like you just want to load out. It's like, okay, I like this gun. I've tested it out. I just want to re-equip it again.
Yeah, I mean, I did like the new market system in terms of like, you know, you could buy weapons directly off it, and it was kind of easy to sell ammo as well. So I was happy about that change. I mean, yeah, hopefully it'll continue for the early access.
I think the issue that we had with chipsets, I put out my feedback post, is that it's just an extremely high cost of death when you lose chipsets, because maybe it's because I was playing out the last weekend where servers were wonky, but I didn't see that many chipsets and crates. I didn't see that many players with chipsets on them either. So I think the current system with loadouts, for instance, where you know what you're supposed to obtain, that would mean that you have, say, for instance, you have a really nice fitting and then you lose it. Then you're gonna spend so much time grabbing all the pieces of it back that yeah, it's just easier to grab the SMG and just roll with it. And I think that's pretty much been everybody that I've seen for the most part. There's been a few exceptions, but large amounts of players just went, yeah, default gun, maybe energy ammo if they feel inclined to do it, to use it if they find it somewhere. But yeah, other than that, I think that's the issue, that like getting chipsets back is the part that breaks the whole cycle. Because if you find a cool chipset, yeah, you've got it, it's fun, but getting it back once you lose it is the part that makes you go, oh, I'm just gonna run default SMG all the time, because why bother, right? Because if you lose it, then it's 4 hours of grinding just to get it back. Well, no.
I think there's another situation as well where squads become overpowered, or certainly kind of pre-made squads do. Like if you're in the scenario where you know, in this situation here, I'm running two weapons because with Peekaboo and Dan, seasoned vets of the games, and yeah, the odds of losing my weapon are really quite low. So that's why I can run these kind of Apex or run these kind of like chipset equipped gear. But like say if I was just squadding randoms or running solo, I would just have that kind of paid for marksman rifle and the free SMG kind of thrown in.
Yes, but you still was in a big disadvantage compared to anyone who took the time to organize the equipment and just choose the loadout. So yeah, I was encouraged to use the free equipment too many times, because like I don't want to like you said, I don't want to like configure like a whole loadout or like again and again. But the thing is, just you felt the advantage with a semi-decent configuration of chipset. You could feel the advantage compared to not running with one. That I liked a little bit. But yeah, I tried some chipset configurations, but mostly run with the free stuff too. But yeah, people posted their configuration in Discord, for example, and I just tried them out, or tried out to experiment with different like precision and everything. So yeah. But mostly, yeah, you was encouraged to just run with the free stuff because of the flow, or the ease to getting back into action. It can be a good like ritual to just choose the loadout for the setting you expect, or for the expedition you want to run, or the style you want to run the expedition. So yeah, a little bit of like preparing your loadout, everything can be really, really fun. But yeah, mostly it ends up being tedious, especially if you don't can save the loadout. So I fully agree. We need some loadout save button. And some sort button, please. Give us a sort button already.
It's just like having that, being that like having enough chipsets to have that consistency of like I want to set up my gun like this and I can kind of consistently set up like that. I think that was the challenge. Again, with no kind of firing range, it meant that and if this is going to be like a long deployment, like 30 minutes or however long, you don't want to be sat with a dud gun for like that length of time. It just, for me, I am more risk averse, and that's why I just didn't do the experimentation with it, basically.
I don't care about losing my loot. The thing is just, I prepare my gun and say, I want this and this out of the engagement, of the deployment. If I lose it, it's okay. It's like EVE mentality. I undock, I prepare to lose it. Else I wouldn't undock, okay? But the thing is just like, what really annoys me is like when there's like a disconnect or everything, I lose the equipment to a technical failure, then to my ability or the situation in the PvP or the situation on the deployment, There's something sometimes I just make the gun and I see, okay, I might lose this baby, but okay, I just want 1 or 2 good firefights, 1 good exchange of bullets, anything that just says, oh my god, my heart is pumping. I was alive in that moment, so if that makes sense. But yeah, it's just like, I don't mind losing the equipment, but I want something like immersion,
Well, I think that's a good point about like kind of having the disconnects as well in terms of server stability. I mean, I wasn't available for like on the second weekend, so I didn't really see it. But like, how bad did it get that kind of second weekend with like on the server performance?
Oh, dude. It was like after the jumping from the tower with 12 people, it was like hell, and then it didn't accept anything. Market was blocked for me and for other players too. So yeah. Then they had like the whole night where they tried to like restart the servers. I don't know.
Yeah, because it's the first one I've seen that's had this kind of like technical problems basically.
Yeah, and it was like such a major issue that it's good that we found it by maybe too late on an alpha playtest. Maybe it should be like we should have tried this multi-squad up in the VIP test, just to make sure such things that didn't exist. Because imagine this bug would made it to the release in November, it would be like devastating, dude. For the alpha, I would argue it like okay, wasn't the best thing, but this stuff happened.
We're still in alpha, and November is going to be an alpha release, so we're fine. It could be one of those issues where server just runs way too long. And well, the game servers were pretty fine, I think. I don't recall. Well, with your exception, Peekaboo of 12 people doing the same thing.
Yeah.
It seems like the main server was wonky at the end of it. It could have been like just some cache issues, something minor. So, and we did ping FC at like 10 p.m. UK time, so we got somebody from their chair on a Saturday. It's like, yeah, fix the server because they're broken.
Yeah,
so.
they instantly reacted. Yeah, they instantly reacted.
Yeah, so we've escalated and was solved. So I think it's one of those technical issues that just sort of happens everywhere. It's like. I think we've just been pushing the game quite far at the end of it, so.
I think it was the jumping and also like doing we on the command block, like 9 people or 12 people like doing the command block was too much for the server to handle. And the extraction we expected with like 7 or 8 people at the same time. So maybe that added to the server. The server.
Yeah, it's interesting because your match wouldn't affect the entire game, but it seems like based on like the timelines, it seemed like you were kind of around the same time where the market stopped working for people. It was weird. There wasn't even an error message. It's like the market wouldn't work. Thankfully, mine did because I was buying the Squire Core blueprints on.
Oh yeah, dude! I felt so sorry for the people that couldn't acquire the blueprint for the Squire Core, just because of that error that the market was blocked. Oh my god, dude! That sucked.
It should be fixed in November, so we'll be fine.
Yeah, talking about like kind of the end game goal. So for this playtest, it was like to craft the Squire Core. So obviously you need the blueprint, and then it was the kind of like the materials as well. I think people did have a pretty rough go of it in terms of the Nemesis Core, which is like kind of a key component, was not into the game until like was like day 10 or certainly the kind of the second week into it. I mean, I just about managed to get one. Before I like went away on holiday, so that was pretty lucky. But I do feel bad for a lot of players who, just the game didn't allow them to basically complete the event, and I can understand that's quite frustrating.
I was just going to say the way that it was distributed as well was not well thought out. You got this squad event, right? It's clearly designed for a squad, but you're only going to give one of the, the reward items. It's like, are you trying to end friendships?
Yeah.
Now, thankfully for us, like I ran with, we ran like the entire evening, me, Peekaboo, and Blind Cyborg. We just made a system. It's okay, we get yours first, then I get mine, and then we get Peekaboo's, and it worked out really well. But we've all known each other for ages. But imagine trying to do that with someone you only just met yesterday. It's like, do I trust this person to even like stick around after they've, after I've helped them, get theirs?
Yeah, but this is the thing. This is the dynamic which is perfect for an extraction shooter, where things should happen like this, or the possibility should not be denied, or it should be possible like this betrayal. That is
Yeah.
what I like about this.
Yeah, but you
Because,
could
of course.
still betray them and take all three though, if you know what I mean. That's still that option. It's like so, like I say, it's that kind of like squad situation, but only like kind of one being rewarded. And that's one being rewarded on the entire server, the entire like kind of game session that you're in. That you've got to share it with potentially like 20 other players or kind of respawns as well. So I think I wasn't a fan of like that kind of the kind of lack of loot, especially within the context of like it wasn't in the game for like over a week. So I would have hoped even temporarily that kind of like buff that up so that not the scenario where like say going to end friendships over it.
It just felt wrong, dude. You have like one Nemesis core dropping for 3 people. Like, okay, it's cool. It's thrilling because there's a betrayal among people that don't know each other for too long. That's a possibility that should be like possible and existing in the game. Else it would be like a little bit bland, if not. But yeah, it should be like there should be like if you a full squad. Or why don't I have the possibility with a certain possibility to drop like 2 Nemesis core, like make a chain space that 2 drop, for something like that. But just dropping constantly 1 Nemesis core for 3 people would be like, yeah. And that is because we had a good squad. I mean, running with Dan and Blind was like, yeah, God mode activated. You know what I mean? Both super good players. So it was okay. Or it was like a system that worked with people that are good in this game. But imagine there's new players that don't know Vanguard too well or couldn't squad up with good people, and they had to run theirs, and getting killed constantly on the command block because from now to nowhere it was like the most or the hottest zone on the playtest, which was good, but very very taxing for players that just try to finish or get the squire core. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like level of loot aside, I was happy with the kind of command block in terms of like it was a good source of conflict. It was well put with other players, and it was kind of like a tense atmosphere inside. And it's like, it's just like I think again those situations where because it's something they created, just is in a rush to get ready in terms of this kind of like pre-arranged date. It meant that the kind of balance side of things, the kind of like that kind of like the things you figure out by actually playing the game, or many players playing the game, I should say, wasn't there really. So I'm hoping for early access we have a lot of kind of like testing in the run up to that.
Yeah, the PvP when we were like grinding out the command block, it was kind of monotonous, but we frequently get like squads trying to get crashes, and that was actually really fun when that happened.
Yeah.
I think we had a lot of fun with that. Like it's just suddenly okay, like screw this, let's go mess these guys up,
Assassin's guy, yeah.
Big praise to FC for that. I think they did a really good job with that.
Yeah, the choke point was good. Yeah, there was a good choke point, and the hottest zone was like the command block. That was good. But yeah, I say for like smaller squads or not players that didn't play for long, it might be like too much of a hazard to get their Nemesis core. Compared then with the fear of missing out like event, yeah, it was like maybe didn't or hampered the enjoyment of the playtest unnecessarily.
I say I managed to get the Nemesis cores like kind of doing it kind of solo basis, but I think every time I did actually encounter other players, like in terms of like you have to kind of fight them off, or certainly like getting out into the extract side of things. So like I think it was kind of a good source of conflict, and I'm not sure how much was to do with the fact it was kind of like so time limited in terms of like people have got like kind of a week to then kind of get the core or not, but I was kind of happy with how that went down. So in terms of like your kind of like favorite POIs, do you still think it's the kind of fuel tower that reigns supreme?
the dynamic of the fuel tower. I really like the command block, just the humming and all the atmosphere that is like the humming of the machines and everything, and the different drops from the NPCs. But just the dynamic of the fuel tower is so good. I mean, there's a certain fatigue, and you always played it like if you played every day on the playtest, it's like you saw it all. But just the effect of running up a building and just have to conquer floor after floor is such a good and refreshing theme in Vanguard that I really hope they iterate on it and they maybe scale it. Because if you do the fuel platform with like 2 squads, 3 squads, there should be like a much more intense response from the NPCs on the tower. Or it's like you maybe even have to choose an alternative route to conquer the tower or to get up to the tower, something like that. But yeah, there's a lot of possibility. But I just like the dynamic of the fuel tower platform. Just the conquering and the close quarter combat situations that you have on the tower. I think FC should, if they amplify the route of PvE, they should work much more with this close quarter situations. I think they are very intense. They made a lot of fun, and yeah, with a squad and having to really aim and direct the fire and having to watch everything. Like it was a really intense fighting situation. I liked it a lot.
I think I don't know. It's kind of difficult for me. I really like the fuel tower. I think the fuel tower is the better encounter, like PvE wise. But I think the command block I think is probably my favorite now, just because of there's a better chance of actually getting a PvP encounter there, just because it takes, if a squad of the third party are in the fuel tower, it takes them a long time to get up, and you can easily get out by the time they get to you. There's enough time there to complete the event. So I think for the true PvE experience, it's the command block for me.
Also, the interesting part about the tower is that usually, by the time you get to the tower, people don't really want to engage you. At least that's what I experienced. Like, once you go to the tower, it's like, do you want to do the tower to get on? Like, yeah, fine. I don't recall having any PvP on the tower. Maybe going away from the tower after completing it, then yeah, maybe sometimes, but more often than not, I did the tower with somebody new, somebody that wasn't in a squad with me, and I was in a squad of my own, so it was like 6 people doing the tower together sometimes. It was also pretty interesting, and it's like, maybe it's because of the advertisements that they did for the heavies on top of it. That it's supposed to be this really hard NPC fight, but yeah, I didn't experience much PvP on the tower. I have to say, it's like, yeah, want to do it together? Yeah, sure, and we did many times over.
I think you're on a friendlier server than I was. I think mine was always violence, but I think talking about the POIs though, I think the challenge is that without any kind of increased variability, without kind of any kind of changes to it, I think it can get quite stale. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I barely hit the Legion compound this entire playtest because I just got overplayed from when that was kind of the main one available, and it's kind of done with it, as it were. So that is, I think, the challenge as we go into early access of how do you keep this fresh? How do you keep players beyond 2 weeks?
Yeah, there wasn't really much point in running the Legion compound. I mean, the fuel tower had the Nemesis logic, and obviously the command block had the Nemesis cores. What did the command block have? It had not the command block, sorry, the Legion compound really is
You needed the Legion compound to complete for one. I think it was an Amar expedition assignment or deployment.
Yeah. I think the only time I ever went there was for an expedition.
Yeah. But the thing was, you had to do the Legion compound. So open up the container with the 3 locks, disengage the 3 locks, to be able to complete it. So you was basically trapped with doing the Legion compound. But yeah, I didn't do it or try to stay away from it because it was just tedious. At this point, it's just tedious.
I think as well for me the Legion compound doesn't have like an end to it. From what I've seen, like you will constantly get NPCs respawning. Like whereas you can clear the fuel tower or you can clear the three panels in the command block. Whereas uh, you'd always be that kind of like constantly hassled by NPCs in the Legion compound, I find.
Yeah, and you trap yourself. You have only one way to escape, and that's the front entrance. So yeah,
Yeah, I think that's
maybe
a
you
good point
hunting
actually.
players as a solo player. Okay, then the Legion compound is good because you are the one that trapping a whole squad if you're good. But yeah, else it was like very tedious or became
That's
tedious.
actually, yeah, that's actually a really good point. The thing is with the Legion compound and the dig site as well. They're both, I think, actually no, I think the Legion combat system is like high in danger, but the dig site is like medium. It's like, which is not true at all. I'd say the dig site is probably the most dangerous place on the map, like to be at all.
Exposed from our sides, yeah.
Yeah, you're exposed. You're in the center of the map. It's like you're like the end. Like if you follow like a straight line from each spawn point, I'm pretty sure you all end up at the dig site. Like if you follow like the natural sort of sloping of the terrain. So it's like every time, like I don't think I ever ran that once. The dig site. It just wasn't worth it. The rewards weren't very good. When you could easily like the hardest POIs apparently were in the corner of the map away from everything else.
Yeah, yeah. But the dig site you had to complete for the Mimata one from the yellow command card from the oppressor, for opening up there's in the building in the dig site there was a building like with a yellow key card door, and you had to open it to be able to complete the Mimata expedition. So yeah,
Yeah, it just goes to show how much I did all the Empire
yeah,
expeditions. So
Well, for me,
but yeah.
it's the combo in terms of you're very exposed site, but then the main kind of enemies for that session or that kind of POI is the drones, and they're to me they can be challenging in terms of like you got to have a deployable shield because there is no cover, and that's like the constant kind of like chip away or constant like stopping your shield respawning is the kind of main threat because they just chip you away.
Also, something that I found like a little bit boring in this playtest was there was so much cover the ground or hold your ground situations with the with the POIs, like stay here for opening the door and you get like waves of NPCs. That was too much of a theme in this playtest.
Yeah, that's definitely my main complaint, and that's why the field tower can be fun as a PvE experience because it is a bit more kind of like there is a sense of progression. It's not just like kind of just wait for these waves. It's like you can kind of attack it yourself. You can kind of like vary your tactics, kind of thing.
Exactly, and you have the dynamic. You have the dynamic of really attacking and enforcing like a strategy, the strategy. That was like something I enjoyed. Like you are not holding your ground until the last NPC wave. No, you are just conquering floor after floor with a good organized squad, and just having some fast action result and with close quarter combats.
yeah, point holding is not very exciting.
Mm,
At least against NPCs. Like it's good like player versus player activity, but not so much NPCs that move predictably and they spawn predictably as well. In the case of like the command block ones where you open the door, it's like you get like two drones per per round or something, right?
yeah,
I think as well we're kind of like back to solo players in terms of like having a kind of like a stand your ground kind of scenario is not appealing for that because it's you could just be overwhelmed with like kind of a rush of like respawning enemies. I don't think that is kind of very interesting combat. So yeah, something that's more kind of dynamic, some very like adding more enemy types or more kind of variability, I think would be much better, like difficulty solution. I would say what I did like is when they did the expeditions, they weren't kind of like locked in the sense of you needed the one to run all the terminals. So like there are missions where you need to go up the fuel tower, missions where you need to kind of like do the three terminals on the command block. But if another squad has already done that, you can kind of just sneak in, after they've kind of cleared out the loot and just kind of quickly complete that expedition. Because that was my kind of complaint in Nemesis, and some of the kind of contracts were like you needed to like you could only get this specific item after you've accepted the contract. So like I say, that kind of ability to be opportunistic, I really enjoyed.
Yeah, and it's stuff like that is going to make the game more solo friendly.
In terms of again like kind of introducing like new players or that kind of solo friendly, I think what I would like to see them do is a lot more kind of tooltips introduction, or like not necessarily return to the new player journey mission that we had in Nemesis. I think whilst it was good, I feel like that gave like kind of a false impression of what the game was. You know, you have a very kind of linear progression through an experience versus the open kind of extraction style, or like sandbox at the time kind of map. So yeah, I'm interested to see what you guys think about, or what you'd like for the kind of the onboarding for next session.
I was just going to say, I think I quite liked MPJ1 from Nemesis. I actually thought it was like the only good thing about Nemesis, to be honest, and they removed it. But they're I think that with some tweaks, and just to go over like the basics, like is how you shoot a gun and stuff like that, because you do need that in a game. It's like you got to just assume that Vanguard is potentially someone's first ever first-person shooter, right? So I think that it does have a place, and I think they should do it like that, just to sort of introduce the universe.
Yeah, I would second that. Also, it like introduced you to. Imagine you're a new player. You're just hearing, you never played EVE, you will never play EVE, but you're hearing about big things and all this. Oh my God, mega huge spells that you will never take part of. And yeah, just gave you like an experience like this. There were EVE things or EVE online things happening when you really looked. For example, when you just passed in the pipe, where you were in the pipe, and you just looked out and you saw this MCC like exploding in the sky. There was something. You was immersed. There is something bigger going on, because Vanguard like misses this point that something bigger going on in the universe, or the universe it partakes in. And that was what I really liked about the new player journey, because even to teach you all the tools, like the mining tool, like breaking the bars or melting the bars of the yeah, in the pipe and everything. And the last situation where you had to hold your ground situation, yeah, of course, but it was like immersive and it was like suspenseful. And with all the ways, then the one RDV that you had to shut down, or had to shut down at the like the motor or something, it was okay. It was something that introduced you to not the whole universe of EVE, but there was things. They introduced you to be a cog in a system that is like there's something going on. There's like a big war going on. You are just like a small little pawn, in the chessboard. And that I liked about the new player journey.
Well, do you feel like the new player journey in Nemesis contributed towards the like much less PvP, much more kind of friendly player setup? Because new players are onboarding and their first experience was not, just shooting whoever they see first.
It is a good question. I cannot answer this.
Yeah, I'm not sorry. I'm not sure. It's hard to say, because I think I mentioned earlier that I think the reason mainly was because you had so many maps and they were so big that it was very easy to avoid conflict, and I think most people will opt to avoid conflict if they can. I think that's what contributed to it mainly.
I think there's just like so many variables. We had like the Nemesis setup. We had a lot of EVE players looking to complete expeditions to get rewards in EVE, and in the Avalon playtest, they could kind of cheese it again with like the ability to queue up. I think the same. You could complete an expedition, cancel, then restart, from what I understand, and that was kind of their chosen method. I'm not sure even how much that required deploying. So whereas in Nemesis, there was a lot more kind of like EVE players who just wanted to complete their expedition and not engage with any other players. But again, you got the new player experience, new player journey 2, where you're actually deployed into a match with other players, and friendly fire, or ability to kill other players, is disabled. And none of this is kind of explained, or it was very easy to miss in game that was kind of like, by the time you've cleared the new player journey, it's all bets are off, and players may shoot or not.
We'll see. I mean, they're thinking about re-adding the whole mingle player thing, which I don't know if they'll get much mileage out of it, to be honest. I mean, it's good as a tutorial sort of mode, but yeah, other than that, I don't know.
I think like the ability to kind of learn the map, or the ability to kind of like engage with things in a kind of a casual environment, I can support that as like kind of an onboarding experience, because so much of our strength in the game is our kind of like map knowledge, and like kind of knowledge of the POIs as well, that we've been able to kind of like test in a like smaller environment, as it were. So offering that to other players, or certainly like kind of new players, I think could be a boon in order for like player retention.
Yeah, they just need to be very, strict on, this is, you're not going to get Nemesis cores from this or anything like that. High tier loot is like you need to actually engage with the proper game for that. But if you want to just have a chill session to learn the map, then here it is.
Yeah, and I think that kind of worries me about what, like a kind of like PvE only mode in terms of like, from what we've played, it was after a while you kind of learn the POI, you learn the kind of like exactly what to do, and it's like once you've done that, what next? PvE to me kind of encourages like much more of a kind of a content mill of like needed to churn things out. So will people be happy kind of like grinding, like say NPCs for kind of lesser rewards? But I don't think many of us are PV players here anyway. So I think my challenge is like the development focus of like it's. I feel like PV has a much more kind of like a quality threshold you need to pass. I mean, playing things like kind of Helldivers and the Division 2 as well. Like, those are polished, like well thought out, like very kind of like solid gameplay like games, and it's like with this kind of relatively late pivot towards PVE. Can FC deliver on that?
I mean, if this is a PvE only game, no, absolutely not.
I think no. The thing is just if you take apart the PvP PvE experience, like if you just PvP it and just separate it, this game will lose. This game will lose on any front because it's not appealing to anything. It won't appeal for a long time for the PvE players. It won't appeal for a long time for the PvP players. So at the current situation or at the current development, I think the PvE shouldn't be separated. There should be like, maybe some modes like an incursion mode. I would love that. And like a low risk engagement deployment or low risk deployment in general. Yeah, I see that, of course. But I see it will not survive in the current state it is. Like, if there's no iteration till November, I don't think it has much time to live. If it separates PvP or makes it too much forgettable, if everything is like predictable, what will happen in Vanguard, it like loses so much of its appeal. And everything, like there's no soul. It barely has any soul at this current state. And you're telling me that like making everything like more predictable, more like I know exactly when I deploy here I can get this and this, and it's like, maybe it's good for you, and if that's your gameplay that you want out of Vanguard, more power to you. But dude, that's not anything I want to see in Vanguard or want to be like the main objective in Vanguard. Just getting stuff or like having something, I can predict where stuff will spawn for me and then where can I extract and where low risk for me will be like prevailing, It's like boring. It would be like for me, it would be the death sentence for me playing this game. Because there would nothing like something engaging or some factor that cannot be like predicted or something. Like, sorry, I like the words at this time, but I don't want any safe spaces or like this approach of only PvE, only PvP. In some small doses, okay, I understand that, but don't water down Vanguard anymore. It's like there's no soul left. Now you wanna water down the gameplay and make it appealing to everyone. I don't know if that's the real route. Sometimes you have to accept that not every player will stay with the game, or you don't have to create a video game for every player imaginable. You know what I mean? It's good that you have variety and try to appeal to everyone. In some cases, but overall, just find an identity, stick to it, and don't make it watered down vision of your video game. I don't know how to, because at this point Vanguard is so forgettable, and I don't see anything like making it like appeal in the future. Besides the community, besides the engagement, maybe if you just break out of the current meta, like with the 3-man squad and just go apeshit and just go like 9 people, 12 people, just this breakage of things, But else, dude. And I like I said in the Discord and everything, I don't wanna dictate any playstyle or negate your playstyle or your enjoyment. If you find enjoyment out of Vanguard in this current form, more power to you. But for me, it's like it's going in a road where it's forgettable, because everything is predictable. It has very good merits, and yeah, it's fun, dude. Engaging with the community for me is fun. But engaging with Vanguard at the moment, I don't know. It's not my Vanguard. I can accept it. I'm not the target audience. But who is with this game, dude? You know what I mean? Who is this target audience? You know? And that FC hasn't figured out, you know what I mean? But I don't know. Maybe it's like nostalgia, or like tainted glasses of nostalgia that I have. But it had an identity at the bare minimum. It had an identity and some soul. And now it's like, I don't know. But at the same time, I agree. It's cobbled together. Oh, not cobbled together. It's becoming to like an idea of a game, yeah. But it misses still so much to be unique on the market, and it aims to be forgettable and just repeats other titles, which these titles should be like praising Vanguard. You know, Vanguard shouldn't be like copying from these titles. This title should be copying from Vanguard and the idea of connecting two different games. You know, and that we haven't really got any closer to that goal or to that milestone. That is a little bit sad, dude. Really sad.
It's interesting because they say they're a small team and everything, and the reason that brings advantages like they don't need like massive numbers to keep running. Basically, that's what they've told us in VIP chats.
Yeah, but
if that's the case, they should use that to their advantage and not like try and go for mass market appeal and
exactly
try and chase trends and stuff like that. It's they should take advantage of that and maybe go with something more niche.
Yeah, in my opinion too. And don't get me wrong, Vanguard should be welcoming to any kind of player. But you should also accept that this is not your like single player, like forgettable single player. I do a loot run and be done with it. There should be like, you should know that this can be like your online experience can be changing. You know, so I don't know, but yeah, trying to appeal to every type of player is like impossible for a small team, and even more if you like putting your tech extraction adventure or extraction shooter on your product, and then trying to water it down to a level where it's like, what even doing here? What we are even doing here?
I think that FC as a company has always been making games that, there was a very creative idea behind them, and then they just went for it, and they didn't really care much about what you thought about it. So with Dust, when it came out on the market, you had some complicated shooters out there, obviously, but the fitting system in Dust was the first of its kind, and nobody has attempted it since because it's just so complicated. And if you look through Dust's history, they always had this thing where they always had to balance something because some other change they made somewhere else now suddenly affected this thing. So it was always a balancing act. But Dust still lives in our memory as a pretty good game overall. With Valkyrie, they just went, hey, let's do VR, and nobody really understood VR when they started doing it. It seemed like this cool technology, but there were no Quest headsets in 2016, but they made a VR title, and to this day, if you go to any VR community and talk about EVE Valkyrie, people will jump at you saying, that's the best VR game we've played. They also did some cool mobile games, so Gunjack, for instance, as well, and Echoes is doing pretty well from what we've seen. Frontier is a really big community now, and those people are just insane with the things they're doing in those games. So I feel the same as you, Peekaboo, in a sense that I find myself confused as to why they haven't found their niche here and went for it as they did in the past and currently with, say, Frontier. It's this middle child that has to have this mass appeal, I suppose, because they want numbers, because revenue, all that sort of stuff. But on the other hand, it's a company that never went mainstream, so it's weird to see them try, but they really shouldn't. The fact that it's called EVE Vanguard, already puts in a niche, because EVE is a niche game, right? It's known, but it's a niche title. Even though many people play it, most gamers out there don't really play or talk about it. It's just a thing that exists, right? As just giant behemoth of a game. So yeah, I'm waiting for the moment where that soul develops for EVE Vanguard, where they decide, hey, this is the game that we're building. We don't care if you like it or not. It's gonna be good. And then they execute that vision, and it turns out it's a good game, because CCP has so far made good games that were sometimes just too early or too late. But it was always a good experience. So I'm waiting for that experience to develop, because right now I can just pick up Marathon, and I have a PS5 now, so I can play on a controller where the UI is great, and I don't have to think much about it. I can just pick up a game and play it. And there's many other titles out there, and it's just perplexing to me that there is no soul in this yet. There's many ideas, and with Avalon they kind of put out the groundwork for what the game is supposed to be, but I don't see how that translates to a unique experience FC has always been making. And I think that's the biggest issue that I have with this game. It's like, whether I have fun or not, I'm gonna play it because, well, mostly FOMO, because, I want all the skins. I assume the Squackle will give you a skin at some point or something else for that matter, so, that's why I got the Squackle in the first place. Because I really want to play this test, to be honest, but I did, and I have the Squackle in my inventory now, but again, there's no soul in this, there's no bigger picture to this yet, and I wonder when's that's gonna show up. Maybe it's because this game is in its infancy, and Valkyrie was shown as a tech demo, but then they went kind of quiet. They would showcase a demo or two, but then they dropped the full game, right? Dust was, there were just so many videos going around, so many talks with the developers, but when they dropped it, it was a completely different experience from what you could have seen in the market. And EVE Vanguard, for all the talk that we hear, I can just pick up Arc Raiders, and it's pretty much the same genre, right? The same ideas in the back. There's War Dogs that's rolling around the corner, and that's been going pretty well from what I've heard. There's so many things for Dust Vets, especially in War Dogs, that appeal to them, from what I've heard. So yeah, it will be interesting to see where they develop that soul, and instead of maybe chasing after some community that doesn't really want to play the game, they invent their community in a sense. But I'm not talking about the endless cycle of you're not the target audience, you're not the target audience. Like, there's gonna be a time where that target audience will appear. I'm just waiting for that when, and I'm curious if I'm gonna be part of that target audience, because right now I'm not sure, right?
Well, I was surprised with the Steam numbers. Like, though we know it should just be basically new players trying the game. Anyone who's not using the EVE launcher will appear on the kind of through Steam. But to not even get into kind of 4 figures, I was really quite surprised at the kind of the low concurrent count. It peaked even kind of before the weekend as well.
Yeah, so I was watching the player counts every single day. They're not representative of the player counts, let's make that clear. So there are so many different ways to play EVE Vanguard. So you could play it off Steam via the EVE launcher. You could play it on Steam via the EVE launcher. So EVE Online, you would be playing EVE Online, but playing EVE Vanguard instead, and that number would go to EVE Online instead of EVE Vanguard. And then you could play EVE Vanguard on Steam. So again, the numbers were apparently the best they've ever had. So I had a ballpark of around 20 to 30,000, I think. That's what I've heard from all the devs for Nemesis. So it has to be higher than that. So it's 5 digits, and it's higher than 20,000, that's for sure. So the numbers were good. But it's been concerning to see that the Steam numbers for those that were new to the game and didn't have an EVE account and just wanted to play Vanguard, that then it had nothing to do with EVE or EVE Vanguard in the past. They went in first time here and they 700 players. That's lower than Dust numbers in 2016, which was around 1,000. So yeah,
Well,
that's concerning.
Especially with the idea to get new players in game, right? That's kind of been their main focus. That's why that's why CCP have said they're not making Dust 2.0, because they need to attract a new audience. They need new players basically into the game. Whereas if most of them are already EVE players, or my situation obviously is kind of as an ex-Dust player playing it, it's kind of I say, still waiting on that kind of extraction shooter audience to turn up.
Yeah, I think we can play the devil's advocate for a second. This test wasn't really marketed that well. We're still months away from a proper marketing campaign. Although, going back, we had a trailer last year, I think, on IGN, and that was like 700,000 views at the end. That didn't translate to any numbers this time around.
I think they got decent boost. Their trailer on YouTube, I think, got over 400k views for this Operation Avalon. And I think the Discord, I think, perked up by about 2,000 members as well. So they did have interest in it. And my point as well is saying that if this is very much an extraction shooter, and this is kind of the audience they're chasing after, but if we're kind of like not bringing that audience in to provide feedback of what they enjoyed and what they didn't, then it's hard to design for them, right?
Also, the thing about numbers is that we don't know how much that record number of players played the game. Because if you just launch it and create a character, you count as a player. And, if you played on, I think it was a Tuesday when it dropped, if, many people dropped on Tuesday and, deployed, played for 5 minutes and then just quit the game, that still counts, right, as a number. So I'm curious about the realistic numbers, say, played for more than 5 hours, I would say. Like 5 hours for this test, then you see some proper dedication, right? 2 hours would be just some base interest, less than 1 hour, pretty much the person's not interested. Over 2 weeks, I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, so that's the thing about it being like kind of the peak player count that we're looking at is that, if you get a situation where you do a lot of people trying the game, but they're trying the game and then quitting and not coming back, that is kind of like misrepresenting the numbers. You did get a lot of players playing it, they just didn't play for long.
I think that's been always the numbers curse. I just hope that, those numbers will improve again with proper marketing. Because again, it wasn't marketed. I mean, yeah, there was like some advertisements here and there, but like, if you see a media campaign for say some game, right? War Dogs, I think I've seen it on social media somewhere. I think even just somebody was like mentioning in like an Instagram reel I watched. This kind of marketing where it's not just a YouTube video, it's not a Facebook post. It's people talking about your game, the community. So many different gaming communities right out there. It's only when that traction picks up that we get to realistically see the final numbers this game will amass.
I think though you would have the kind of wish lists. You would have, so I think it's about 100k wish list for Nemesis. Players would have gotten a notification that that it's available to play.
Yes, but the wish list to player numbers are like 3 to 5%, I think. Depends really on the game, but like it's less than 10% of people that wish list your game end up playing it.
Well, is that for games though that are free? Like that like I've got plenty of games on wishlist that I'm just waiting for a sale kind of thing. But if I had a free playtest coming up, like I've hit Marathon free weekends and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, we'll see. I guess sometimes I would get a playtest notification after it's over, so I'll realize because I don't always sit on Steam all day, so. It could have been that some people just missed it, but I wouldn't dismiss the numbers as being alarming yet because of the amount of marketing that has been done. Because you're gonna go on Steam, oh, there's a playtest coming up, oh, whatever, I'll check it out later. It's like 2 weeks past, and that's nothing. I just think that a proper marketing campaign will give us the numbers because I think the numbers are still mostly the EVE Dust audience plus some others. Meanwhile, when marketing really begins and there's some pre-playtests, we're not sure still how the game's gonna be accessed, right? Is it gonna be a subscription? Is it gonna be one-time purchase? I'm not sure, but there's gonna be a November event has a lot of marketing behind it, then those numbers will go up, and then we will see what they actually mean. Because again, out of that, over 20,000, how many have quit because it's just an extraction shooter? How many quit because, it doesn't play like Dust? Oh, how many people quit because they couldn't run the game? Performance was terrible. How many people wait for this game to mature a bit more? It's complicated, right? I think we'll be seeing those numbers later, but yeah, the initial numbers that we have been seeing haven't been excellent, I would say. But yeah, I'd still wait for those numbers to really appear and like settle in.
Yeah, guys, it's one of the things that I think all four of us were playing kind of the EU server, EU West more than anything. Like, I've heard people complain about extraction camping, but that's not something I kind of like personally experienced. I mean, I think I did get headshot whilst doing the extraction button, with the kind of the latest build, but that was only really once, so it wasn't particularly widespread. I mean, what was your experience with it?
All I've got to say about extraction camping is skill issue.
Yeah, it's a skill issue.
Because if you're like the extraction beam, right, well, especially when they nerfed it, you should not be standing on the bridge itself. The beam lasts long enough that you can stay in cover and just jump into that beam as soon as it's there. Like, it's not a control point. Don't treat it like a control point. Like, get away from that thing. It's a hotspot.
Yeah. You had enough time to just run into the beam when it activated. Yeah.
Like, I don't think much camping happens at all. I think it was just a hotspot, and people get killed because they're not paying attention to the surroundings, and they go, oh, they were camping, when really they just happened to come across you because they were trying to extract as well.
And also activating the extraction sequence meant that you became the primary target for everybody looking to either get your stuff or to get some kills, right? The second somebody recognized, oh, there's a player trying to extract, you run there for PvP. And the solution was shields. You could pick up a shield or two, pick up some grenades, and then, hide. Like, get ready. Like, there was so much time to get ready and defend yourself. And again, you could also just hide in a pipe somewhere and just run at the last possible second. There was one option. So I didn't encounter spawn camping. I would just say that extraction triggers a PvP game mode as your final stand before you get a chance to extract. It's like extraction is not really confirmed when you wait for that beam. It's like you will meet some people that really want your stuff on your way out. So yeah, just kill issue.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, like, especially as a solo player, you don't need to be the one to activate the beam. There are plenty of people also looking to extract and will happily, do it for you, and you just need to kind of run in the last moment. You need to kind of like time your run accurately, and you're off and away. I mean, one tactic I did try as well, because I was kind of trying to get out with Nemesis cores, I did just like dump one on the ground like before I pressed the extraction button, because if I die, then I can kind of either going to reclaim it, or I'm going to be in a situation where the player at least is not going to get my loot. So I got that kind of like I feel good about that at least. So I think there are a variety of tactics you can use around the extract to kind of like get better results, basically.
It really is just a skill curve thing. I get it. It sucks, getting killed on the extract. You also got to use your head a little bit. It's okay. Well, I activate this thing and it makes like a map-wide beacon and a lot of noise. So I probably shouldn't stand on this thing. I should probably hide. Because all you need to do as soon as that beam is there, you just run into it. As soon as you're in it, you're free. So you can't die. So yeah, you just need to figure out the game mechanics.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very quick, like, as soon as you just touch it, it was very quick in terms of, you're safe, basically. You may be continued to be shot at, but as the animation shows, you're kind of being, like, ground up anyway, so, like, but your loot is safe. So I think we covered off a lot of ground there. Thanks again for everyone coming on, and if they'd like to add any closing remarks.
I will say thank you to everybody who didn't shoot me on sight, especially those players that likely have seen me, but I was carrying like 2 Nemesis logics, and I was literally shaking, and those players did not attack me and let me extract. So thank you to those players. I'm not sure who you were, but thank you. Also thank you to somebody else that shot somebody else that also provided me with some other components for the Squire call. Thank you, that player. Forgot their name, but thank you. I'm sure you were really disappointed to see you lose so much stuff, but thank you to whoever shut you down. And yep, we'll see you on the ground in November, and November will bring control support and a much better UI, so yeah, let's see how that goes.
To anyone who squatted up, who was on the voice chat and the hangout, everything, and just joined the action with the platoon and everything, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. It was such a great experience with you guys. Thank you for your patience and everything, and just sticking with the event and everything.